Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hope you guys are having a great day. We got some NHL news to discuss on this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. We'll start off by recapping Game 5 of the 2026 Stanley Cup Final. And it will be the Carolina Hurricanes coming out on top for the VGK, Vegas Golden Knights, with a 4-2 win in Raleigh, Game 5, Thursday night. They now lead the series 3-2. And this is their first lead of this series. And they are just one win away from winning their first Stanley Cup in 20 years. They last won the Stanley Cup in 2006, their first and only Stanley Cup in franchise history. And 20 years later, they have a chance to win their second Stanley Cup in franchise history. Can they get it done in Game 6? We'll just have to see. I'll give you guys my prediction at the end, which I feel like you guys might already know my prediction since I showed you my playoff bracket and since I told you who I thought was going to win the Stanley Cup from the very beginning. So I'm pretty sure all of you guys know who I'm picking to win Game 6. But just in case, I will tell you guys at the end of this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Carolina captain Jordan Staal was at it again, scoring his 6th goal of the Stanley Cup Final and extending an incredible score streak that has become one of the defining storylines of this series. He just has a knack for finding the net. This guy cannot stop scoring in the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, it seems like every game he has scored in. Like, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. Like, I'm surprised he's not in the Conn Smythe Trophy conversation because he always finds a way to get the puck in the back of the net. He has a knack. He kind of has that knuckle puck, even though it's not really a knuckle puck. He has that knuckle puck, score in the back of the net. Like, it's crazy the way that he's doing for Carolina. And fun fact, Jordan Staal is the 5th straight player to score in 5 consecutive Stanley Cup Final games at any point of this series. The others were Ivan Kornayer, hopefully I pronounced that name right, who did it in 1973 in games 2 through 6. John Beliveau, who did it in 1956, games 1 through 5. Maurice Rocket Richard, who did it in 1951 in games 1 through 5. And Cyclone Taylor, what an interesting name that is. I like that name. Who did it in 1918 in games 1 through 5. So it's very impressive. It's some elite company that Jordan Staal is in, by the way. Those names are all Hall of Famers. They are all-time greats. They are some of the greatest players to ever play the game of hockey. So, great company for Jordan Staal to be in. Another fun fact, Jordan Staal is the 4th player in NHL history to score a goal in the first 5 games of a Stanley Cup Final. And again, the others were John Beliveau, Maurice Rocket Richard, and Cyclone Taylor. And a little bit more history stat about Jordan Staal. If he scores again in Game 6, which I feel like most of us, especially if you're a Hurricanes fan, will know that he might score in Game 6 considering what he's done in the first 5 games of this series. If he does score in Game 6, I'm pretty sure he will. You guys know that he will. At least most of you, or some of you, especially ones that are Hurricanes fans. But if he does score in Game 6, he will move to 7 goals in the Stanley Cup Final, surpassing Ivan Kornayer for most goals in consecutive Stanley Cup Final games. He will set a new record for scoring in 6 straight Stanley Cup Final games. Nobody has ever done that before. He will be the first player to do so if he so happens to score in Game 6 Sunday night. Andrei Svechnikov had a 2-goal game in this one for the Carolina Hurricanes. He scored twice on the power play. I think both his goals were, they were power play goals in this one. So he scored twice on the power play, providing that offensive spark to power the Hurricanes to this win. Arguably his best and biggest performance of this Stanley Cup Final. His first goal came in the second period that made it 2-1 Carolina, and then he had another goal in the third period, also on the power play, that made it 4-1 off of the 360 spin around a pass from Nikolai Ehlers. Did a 360 spin pass, found Andrei Svechnikov, who tapped the puck into a wide open cage. Sebastian Aho. It's been a long time coming for Sebastian Aho. We haven't seen him score this much in the Stanley Cup Final. We haven't seen his name get a lot of attention. But he finally scores in this one. And man, I just spit on my computer. That's embarrassing. But anyway, Sebastian Aho finally scores in this one. He scored in the second period, and what a beautiful play that was from the Carolina Hurricanes to set up Sebastian Aho for the goal, scoring his first goal of the Stanley Cup Final, which I know is hard to believe, but this line of Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, Seth Jarvis, they have been clicking a bunch of times in this series, but now, I know Seth Jarvis had the game winner in Game 2, but Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov, that whole line, there was some questions coming into this final of was that line going to dominate and make a name for itself. And I know Jarvis had the game winner in Game 2, but Sebastian Aho was being quiet in this one. We have not seen that much goal scoring from him. And he and Andrei Svechnikov just ran away with it for the Carolina Hurricanes in this one. Unbelievable game from them. And Brandon Bussi, the bus train, chugga, 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 choo, choo. He had 22 saves on 24 shots faced the net. And fun fact, according to ESPN, he's the first goaltender in NHL history to make his first 2 career playoff starts in the Stanley Cup Final and win both his games. What an unbelievable journey that Brandon Bussi has had. The bus train, going at it again. He's played in 111 AHL games, all with the Providence Bruins. Traded to the Panthers, picked off from waivers by Carolina. So he's going to have a remarkable story to tell if the Hurricanes can pull this off and win the Stanley Cup Sunday night. That'll be a story that I will watch if they were to put a story about Brandon Bussi on him, because he has been playing unbelievable. I told you guys, Evan. I told you guys going into Game 4, Rod Brind'Amour needed to start Brandon Bussi. I also said that start him throughout the rest of the Stanley Cup Final. See how it plays out. And it's certainly paying off because they're up 3-2 in the series and can most likely win the Stanley Cup Sunday night. Just have to see. For the VGK Vegas Golden Knights, Pavel Dorofeyev, or should I say Pavel Skorofeyev, has scored twice for the Golden Knights. He's now up to 12 goals this postseason. And Carter Hart made 20 saves on 24 shots in net. This is another game that Carter Hart gives up 4 or more goals. And he's now the first goalie in NHL history in a Stanley Cup Final to give up 4+ goals in 5 straight Stanley Cup Final games. You don't want to be on that side, but he is. And then, just bad news even more. William Karlsson did end up leaving this game for the Golden Knights in the second period with 11 minutes and 34 seconds remaining. And John Tortorella noted that he could miss the remainder of the series. He crashed awkwardly into the boards during the second period on a hit from Sean Walker. Went to the bench. He was shaking up, favoring his left arm and wrist. And then 11 minutes and 25 seconds remaining, he went back to the locker room. He did not return. He played 8 minutes and 43 seconds of time on ice in this one, and he had 12 shifts in this game. Huge loss for the VGK, considering he's one of the best penalty killers, best two-way center. And he's really good on special teams overall, though. He's an original Golden Knight. He was picked up in the expansion draft by the Golden Knights when they came to the league in 2017. Just a tough loss for Vegas. That line with him, Mitch Martin, Brett Allen, that was a good line. And seeing Will Karlsson go down is really really hurts the team. And interesting timing for this too, because the game was tied 1-1 when William Karlsson left, and then shortly afterwards, Vegas took consecutive, unnecessary, dumb, stupid penalties that cost them the game. And then when they took those penalties, Carolina's power play got rolling, and the Hurricanes scored twice in the second period to seize control of this game. They actually had a better second period than the Golden Knights, so they flipped the script in this one. Because the Golden Knights were dominating them in the second period, and they were outscoring them 9-1, but the Hurricanes, they flipped the script. They memorized the formula, and so they took something out of the Golden Knights playbook. And they just dominate them in that middle frame. And that's what, got them going and seized control of this game, took control of this game, not allowing the Golden Knights to get back in it, not allowing this to be another crazy game. Because as you guys all know, we've seen some crazy games in this series. We've seen some back and forth games in this series, and the Hurricanes to make sure that this doesn't be another back and forth game, because as we all know in hockey, and as we all know from this series, no lead is safe, and the Hurricanes took control of that. So it's just kind of funny, not funny if you're a Golden Knights fan, but just kind of odd that once William Karlsson went down and left, the Hurricanes were able to take control of this game. But let's share some key takeaways from Game 5 of the 2026 Stanley Cup Final. Takeaway number 1, special teams was the deciding factor. If you guys missed my preview episode of the Stanley Cup Final on my Hockey Talk with TG podcast, I said in the preview episode that special teams was going to be the deciding factor. It was going to decide who was going to win the Stanley Cup. It was going to decide who was going to be the more dominant team in the series. Like I said, special teams will be the swinging factor. It will be a deciding factor. And Game 5 certainly proved that. In fact, this whole entire series proved that. That's what's been happening throughout these 5 games of the Stanley Cup Final series. You should take a look at Carolina's special teams. Games 1 through 5. Carolina has been 6 for 16 on the power play at just 37.5%. And their power play sucked throughout this postseason. Like in the first round, second round conference finals, it just wasn't there for them. But in the Stanley Cup Final, their power play has came up for them time and time again. Like a power play that wasn't even as dominant throughout this whole postseason is now coming into fruition of the Stanley Cup Final. Like it's helping them win. I did say special teams was going to be the deciding factor, and they are proving my point. Take a look at their penalty kill. 13 for 15 on the PK. No surprise about that, because Carolina's penalty kill has been dominant all throughout the regular season and the postseason. And in recent years before, maybe 2-3 years before, their penalty kill has been just that good. So I'm not really surprised at the penalty kill as I am with the power play. So 6 for 16 on the power play in this series, 37.5%, and then 13 for 15 on the penalty kill at 86.7%. Power play goals they scored in this series, they scored 6 power play goals. They allowed 2 power play goals from Vegas. Special teams goal differential +4. But taking a look at the Golden Knights side in games 1 through 5, Vegas has been 2 for 15 on the power play at 13.3%, and 10 for 16 on the penalty kill at 62.5%. They scored 2 power play goals in this series. They only gave up 6. Special teams goal differential -4. If Carolina goes all the way to win the Stanley Cup, you could thank the special teams for that, because they are certainly taking advantage of the special teams. Their power play and mostly their power play has come alive in the Stanley Cup Final. They have scored 4 more power play goals than Vegas has this entire series, and they have come at crucial times too. We saw the old time game-winning goal from Seth Jarvis in Game 2 when Tomas Hertl, who scored the game-winning goal in Game 1 of that series, but entering Game 2, took a tripping penalty. It was an unnecessary penalty, and it cost the Golden Knights the game. So they just gotta be so disciplined. They weren't disciplined in Game 2 in overtime, and they definitely weren't disciplined in Game 5. So yeah, the power play, the Hurricanes power play has come at crucial moments. We saw the Seth Jarvis overtime game-winning goal in Game 2 scored on the power play, and then we saw the Andrei Svechnikov power play goals. He scored 2 power play goals in Game 5. And not to mention in Game 4. Or was it game? No, it was Game 3. It was Game 3 where he had the game-tying goal with 1 minute and 42 seconds remaining in the third period, when the Hurricanes had that crazy, insane comeback and they scored those 3 goals. And 39 seconds after Mitch Marner, after Mitch Marner had a Marner mania in the second period for the Vegas Golden Knights, the Hurricanes. Their third period resiliency, them scoring those 3 goals, 39 seconds, and then Andrei Svechnikov had the game-tying goal on the power play in Game 3 to send that game to overtime. So it has come at crucial moments, and 4 of the 5 games have been decided by 2 goals or fewer. Game 5 was the perfect example. You had Pavel Dorofeyev scoring on the power play for Vegas. And then Andrei Svechnikov scored on a power play for Carolina. Final score 4-2 Carolina. And what's even more concerning for Vegas is that Carolina's power play has been trending upward. They have been doing really good. Game 1, they had 0 power play goals. Vegas penalty kill was perfect in that one. Game 2, they had 2 power play goals. Game 3, they had 1 power play goal. Game 4, they had 1 power play goal. Game 5, they had 2 power play goals. This is all for Carolina, by the way. Meanwhile, for Vegas, they have only scored power play goals in games 3 and 5. And if those numbers hold up in Game 6, Vegas almost has to win Game 6 5-on-5. They have to win the 5-on-5 battle decisively because they are getting crushed by the special teams. And with William Karlsson being out for the remainder of the Stanley Cup Final, who's one of the best penalty killers and matchup centers, by the way, he's not going to be able to fix that for them. Vegas is going to have to figure out a formula to keep them alive in the series and force a winner-take-all Game 7 back in Raleigh on Wednesday, June the 17th. But special teams has been really good so far, and it's in the favor. It's in the favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. So. And takeaway number 2. I don't know if I said this. No, actually, let me get to the Golden Knights' unnecessary penalties before I move into takeaway number 2. So, the Golden Knights took too many unnecessary penalties in this one. Way too many unnecessary penalties. We'll start with the Jeremy Lauzon taking down Logan Stankoven. Just tackling Logan Stankoven to the ground. A needless penalty in a critical moment. Come on. No need for that. And then the Mark Stone high-staking penalty on Jalen Chatfield in the third period, resulting in a double minor because Jalen Chatfield was bleeding after taking the high stick from Mark Stone. And then I think this was in the second period. Brady McNabb had 2 cross-checks. He got away with 1 cross-check, but he had 2 cross-checks. One of them being on Taylor Hall, and then which that one was not called. The referee didn't call that one. And then he had another one on Jackson Blade. Now, that's when the referee raised his arm up and said that's the penalty. So he got away with the first cross-check, on Taylor Hall, and then didn't get away with the second one. So, again, they didn't have the discipline in Game 5. And they're going to have it in Game 6. Now we'll move into takeaway number 2. So takeaway number 2, another Brandon Bussi show. The bus train. Chugga, 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 choo, choo. Brandon Bussi put on another clinic in net, stopping 22 of 24 shots faced and looking completely composed in a pivotal must-win Game 5. Got the job done for the Carolina Hurricanes. In Game 3, I said on my podcast, Hockey Talk TG podcast, that Freddie Anderson was struggling. Vegas had to take him out. And not Vegas, Carolina, excuse me. Freddie Anderson was struggling. Carolina had to take him out. Vegas was generating their looks, taking advantage of Freddie Anderson. They got him exposed. Needed a goaltending change. They certainly got it ever since Brandon Bussi has stepped in the crease for the Carolina Hurricanes. It has paid off, and the Hurricanes are doing well, and that's why they have a 3-2 series lead, and Brandon Bussi is the main reason why. Like, he's been doing unreal for Vegas. Now, speaking of Vegas, Carolina took something out of their playbook. They dominated the second period against them. Vegas can take something out of Carolina's playbook going into Game 6. They can start Adin Hill in net and take out Carter Hart because he has played completely awful in this series for the Golden Knights. They need a goaltending change, and you should put in Adin Hill, who helped the Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup in 2023, their first and only Stanley Cup. So he has the experience, whereas Carter Hart, this is his first Stanley Cup Final. He wasn't part of that 2023 Stanley Cup run for the Golden Knights. He was nowhere to be found. But Adin Hill was. Adin Hill was part of that that 2023 Stanley Cup run. And this got asked by Johnny Lawless of Daily Faceoff in the press conference between the Golden Knights and Avalanche, Game 5. And John Tortorella was asked by Johnny Lawless, is there a chance for goaltending change? Like, he said he asked something about a need for goaltending change, and John Tortorella immediately shut that question down and said that was the stupidest question I ever heard. So I'll play you guys the video, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it.
Left side standing up.
John, did you consider at all going to Adin Hill in the third period, or was there any conversation you thought about it?
Christ, that could be the stupidest question I've heard.
Left side.
Seriously? That's not a stupid question. That's actually a great question. And I was just saying that before this video started trending on the internet. I was saying off fair on my podcast that Carter Hart has played terrible through this series. I said that the Hurricanes should take out Freddie Anderson, put in Brandon Bussi. It's worked out well for them. The Golden Knights should do the same. They should take out Carter Hart, put in Adin Hill. I get why Torch wants to leave Carter Hart in net, because he's been their number one guy. He's got them to this point. Excuse me. He's got them to this point. Like, he's the number one guy. He's been having all the workload in the playoffs, whereas Adin Hill, can't even remember last time he played a game for the Golden Knights in the regular season. He hasn't played at all his playoffs, but I can't remember the last time that he played a regular season game for the Golden Knights this 2025-26 season. I get why from Torch, but you got to understand, you're in a must-win game for Game 6. It's a must-win game for Game 6, and you saw what Carolina did with their goaltending change, because Freddie Anderson was the main reason, or one of the reasons, why Carolina was able to make it to the Stanley Cup Final. But in the first 3 games, he struggled. And he was not playing well, and he needed a break, especially after playing in the first round, which was a sweep to the Senators. So that's 4 games right there. Second round, sweep to the Flyers. That's 8 games right there. Conference Finals, which they won against the Canadiens in 5 games. So that's 13 games right there. And in the Stanley Cup Final, where he played the first 3 games, so that's 16 games right there. So he's played 16 games in his playoffs. And in the first 3 games in the finals, he struggled. He needed a break, and they put in Brandon Bussi, and Brandon Bussi won them Game 4, won them Game 5, and Game 3. Even though he lost in Game 3, he came in at the third period for Game 3, but he was one of the reasons why this game was Game 3 was able to go into overtime. So their goaltending change has worked out well for them. The Golden Knights need to follow in those footsteps. Carolina took something out from their playbook. Take something out from Carolina's playbook. Like, do what Rod Brittamore did for his goaltending change. So that's what I would do if I was Source. If I was John Tortorella, I would be starting Adin Hill in a must-win game for Game 6. And he channeled his inner Mark Messier saying that we will win Game 6. We will force a Game 7. You guys don't know. 1994 Eastern Conference Finals, Rangers, Devils, a classic Hudson River rivalry. Mark Messier, there was a newspaper from the New York Post, I believe, or some New York newspaper saying, for Mark Messier saying, we'll win tonight. And they won Game 6, 1994 Eastern Conference Final. Mark Messier finished the game with a hat trick, by the way. He made a bold statement saying that they will win Game 6, and they did. They forced the Game 7 back at MSG, Madison Square Garden. And then Stefan Matteau won the game in overtime for the Rangers against the Devils, sent them on to the 1994 Stanley Cup Final. You guys know the rest. They won the Stanley Cup against the Vancouver Canucks. So John Tortorella made a bold statement saying that they would win Game 6 and force a Game 7 back in Raleigh Wednesday night. Well, I don't know if she's going to get it done. She's going to get the win done with Carter Hart in net. So you need to take out Carter Hart and sub in Adin Hill if you want a chance to try and win Game 6 and force a Game 7. Otherwise, if Carter Hart's in there, then the series is over. The takeaway number 3, Carolina was the dominant team in Game 5. Now, the stats may show otherwise, because I think it was showing that Vegas was dominating the game. But even though Vegas had stretches where they controlled the play, Carolina was more effective when it mattered the most. They executed on special teams. They got saves when they needed them. And they finished their chances. And historically speaking, teams that win Game 5 and take a 3-2 series lead go on to win the Stanley Cup 83.3% of the time. And I said this before the start of Game 5. Whoever wins Game 5, which was the Hurricanes, is most likely going to win the Stanley Cup. And the Hurricanes won Game 5, and they're most likely to win the Stanley Cup. Whether that goes to 6 games, whether that goes to 7 games, whether they get it done in Game 6, or whether it goes to 7 games back in Raleigh, I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. But overall thoughts on this one, it was another good game for the Stanley Cup Final Series. I know some people were saying when Vegas cut it to 4-2, they thought that Vegas was going to tie it up at 4, and this was going to be another bizarre, bombockerous game. I'm not sure if that's even a word, but that kind of sums up of how the Stanley Cup Final has gone, bombockerous. I'm not sure if that's a word or not, but that's how I would sum up the Stanley Cup Final series between the Golden Knights and the Hurricanes. But can't wait for Game 6. We'll do a preview of that later on throughout this episode of Hockey Talk TG Podcast, so stay tuned for that. If the Golden Knights want a chance to force a Game 7, you're not going to get it done with Carter Hart in net. There needs to be a goaltending change. Put in Adin Hill. I mean, guys, Golden Knights, both these teams have a day off. In fact, they had like 2 days off because Game 5 was on Thursday night, and then Game 6 will be on Sunday night. So they had 2 days off. So you got to get Adin Hill some reps in. You got to give him some practices in, and let him get back to himself, and then have him win you guys a game. Because you're not going to get the job done with Carter Hart in net. But let's move on to the Hart Memorial Trophy Award, as Nikita Kucherov for the Tampa Bay Lightning takes home the Hart Memorial Trophy this season. This is his second Hart Memorial Trophy. He won his first one back in 2019 during the 2018-19 season. And now 7 years later, he takes home the Hart Memorial Trophy once again. I know my friend Sam is happy about this because he is a huge Tampa Bay Lightning fan. And probably some other Tampa Bay Lightning fans are happy about this. This puts him among elite multiple-time Hart winners, as he is the third player in NHL history to win multiple Hart trophies in a gap of 7+ years, joining legends like Sidney Crosby and John Beliveau. He is the 17th player in NHL history to win the Hart Memorial Trophy more than one time or two times. And the 4th active player to do so. Of course, Wayne Gretzky, the great one, he won 9 Hart Memorial Trophies. Gordie Howe, he won 6 Hart Memorial Trophies. Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe. And then Eddie Shore, he won 4 Hart Memorial Trophies. Mario Lemieux, he won 3. Bobby Clark, he won 3. Alex Ovechkin, the great 8, he won 3. Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid, he won 3. Austin Matthews, he won 3. Neil Stewart, he won 2. Phil Esposito, he won 2. Bobby Orr, he won 2. Guy Lafleur, he won 2. Mark Messier, he won 2. Dominic Hasek won 2. Jumbo Joe Thornton, he won 2. Connor McDavid, he won 2. And of course Nikita Kucherov with 2 Hart Memorial Trophies. And then the active players with multiple Hart Trophies, I just named them already, but I'll say it again. Sidney Crosby won the active players to win multiple Hart Memorial Trophies with 3. Austin Matthews with 3. Connor McDavid with 2. And now Nikita Kucherov with 2. Speaking of Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov narrowly defeated Connor McDavid in a 10-point margin voting finish. One of the tightest Hart Trophy races in decades. So that is pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. Like, I thought this was going to be another year that Connor McDavid takes home the Hart, because it seems like to me, it may not seem that way to you guys, but to me, it feels like he wins these Hart Memorial Trophies every year. And I thought this was going to be another year that Connor McDavid takes home the Hart Memorial Trophy. It probably hasn't been like that. And it has been like that to you guys. It probably hasn't been like that to anybody else. But it feels like to me, it feels like Connor McDavid wins these every single year. I know it's not that way, but I'm just telling you guys my perspective how I would, imagine it. So, but I'm pretty sure some people are happy about Nikita Kucherov winning, especially if you're a Lightning fan, because some people just don't like Connor McDavid. Say that he's overrated, but I don't think he's overrated. But I know that's what I've been hearing from some other hockey fans, saying that he's overrated. Yeah, come on. Best player in the league. One of the best players in the league, if not the best player in the league. Like, Connor McDavid does it all. He's a different human. I know he hasn't won the Stanley Cup. That is still yet to come. He still has lots of time to win one. I'm not sure if he's going to win one with Edmonton. No, especially with the Mike Babcock situation, which I discussed that in the last episode of the Hockey Talk GG podcast and the episode before that. So make sure to check those episodes out if you have not already. But yeah, just an unbelievable finish for the Hart Trophy for Nikita Kucherov. Some people say Macklin Celebrini should have won it. He should have been in this Hart Memorial Trophy conversation. He should have been one of the finalists for the Hart Memorial Trophy, and rightfully so. He had an unbelievable sophomore season in the NHL. I thought he was going to be at least, I don't know if he was in the Ted Lindsay Award for the finalists, but he should have been in the Hart Memorial Trophy finalists, and he got absolutely robbed. So yeah, tough for him. And then Nathan McKinnon, Nate Dahl, he finished third in the Hart Memorial Trophy race. But taking a look at Nikita Kucherov's season, he had an elite offensive production season for the Tampa Bay Lightning, as he finished the season with 130 points in 76 games, 44 goals, 86 assists for 130 points in 76 games this season for the Tampa Bay Lightning, ranking among the league leaders in nearly every offensive category. He consistently drove Tampa Bay's offense night to night, night in, night out. He did it all for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He also anchored on that power play and their transition attack. He led the NHL in points per game with 1.71 points per game, reinforcing his efficiency as one of the most dangerous offensive players in hockey. He's also recorded 40 multi-point games. He's at points in 60 or 76 games played, so he is not human. Overall thoughts on this, though? Absolutely great finish from Nikita Kucherov to win the Hart Memorial Trophy. Again, I thought it was going to be Connor McDavid that was going to win. To be honest, if you're a Lightning fan, I thought McDavid was going to win. Because, again, it just feels like to me he wins these awards every single year. Like he's been there for the Edmonton Oilers. He's done it all with the Edmonton Oilers. He hasn't won no Stanley Cup because I feel like that's what some of you guys are going to say. He hasn't won a Stanley Cup. But it just feels like this will be another great year. And it has been a great year for Connor McDavid, no question, that he takes home the Hart Memorial Trophy. But then this one this time. But let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments. Like, who do you think the Hart Memorial Trophy should have gone out to this year? But I think Nikita Kucherov absolutely deserved it. Like, after the season that he had, just edging out Connor McDavid, like, that is unbelievable. I'm not sure how Oilers fans feel about that. But let's head into our segment, Game 6, 2026 Stanley Cup Final preview segment of this episode of Hockey Talk TG Podcast. So, of course, Hurricanes lead this best-of-7 series 3-2. First time at this point leading the series because the Golden Knights have led so far the series heading into Game 5. They led the series 1-0. They led the series 2-1. Now the Hurricanes had their first series leads. And it's just, again, one win away from winning their second Stanley Cup in franchise history. The last one was obviously in 2006. Golden Knights facing elimination in this one. Down the series for the first time. It's a must-win Game 6 for the VGK. How we got here? Let's start with Game 1 where Vegas set the tone early in the series. They won 5-4. Looked like the most explosive offensive team. They controlled most of the dangerous chances, generated quality opportunities off the rush, and left the Hurricanes in the dust. Vegas had the upper hand in Game 1. Game 2, Carolina responded, especially in those final 10 minutes of the third period. Golden Knights had an opportunity to take a commanding 2-0 series lead heading back to Vegas for Game 3, but instead Carolina battled back. Seth Jarvis with the overtime game-winning goal. Series tied up at 1. And then Game 3 I would describe in complete chaos. And it was in complete chaos. It's one of the wildest Stanley Cup Final games we've seen in years. Vegas up 4-0 in the second period. The second period dominance continues to show in the series. Mitch Marner. WrestleMania was in April, but in Game 3 it was Marner Mania. And WrestleMania was in Las Vegas, so that's why I was saying that. But Game 3 was Marner Mania in Las Vegas. Had a hat trick and an assist for a 4-point night. His second hat trick in the playoffs, as he had one in Game 3, I believe, against Anaheim. So, coincidentally, he gets a hat trick in Game 3 here. He also had an assist for a 4-point night. And then Carolina stormed back with 4 unanswered goals and forced overtime this one. And then they got the goaltending change, Brandon Bussi to start that third period. And then it would be the Golden Knights ultimately winning in double overtime on a goal from Shea Theodore. They now lead the series 2-1. Game 4 was going to be the turning point of the series. But I think it was a must-win for Game 4 for the Hurricanes more than it was for the Golden Knights. Because if they were to go down 3-1, the series would have been over it. But the Hurricanes did what they needed to do. They won Game 4. Rob Brind'Amour made the goaltending change, put Brandon Bussi in net, got his first Stanley Cup Final start. Jordan Staal scored twice in this one, including the game-winning goal in the third period when he was on the ice, face down, celebrating the game-winning goal. And in the second line, Taylor Hall, Logan Stankoven, and Jackson Blake were going in this one. And then in Game 5, Carolina took control of this one. The Golden Knights had their opportunities. They had their chances, but Carolina managed the game better. They got the saves when they needed to from Brandon Bussi. They got the goals. They got the power play goals from Andrei Svechnikov twice. And Sebastian Aho finally scored in the Stanley Cup Final Series, powered the Hurricanes to the win. And championship teams don't always dominate in the possession. They dominate in the bigger moments. That's what Carolina did. And they're 1 win away from winning their second Stanley Cup in franchise history. The biggest question for Vegas heading into Game 6, can they stave off elimination? Because for the first time in the series, they are down. And this could be a heartbreaking game for the Golden Knights. They can't get their act together. How do the Golden Knights respond coming out the gate? Do they come out for a dominant opening period in overall game? Or do they play from behind just like they did in Game 5 and in Game 4? So which version of the Golden Knights shows up in the series? Because we've seen multiple versions of this team throughout the series, obviously, because this was a back-and-forth series. We've seen a faster, aggressive Vegas team from Game 1. We've seen the dominant Vegas team in Game 3. We've seen a resilient Vegas team in Game 3 that won them. The overtime went up in the series 2-1. So we've seen the resiliency Vegas team, but we also seen a Vegas team that has struggled to protect the momentum and score in bigger moments, just like in Game 4 and Game 5. We've seen the team that let opportunities slip away from them. We've seen a team that has struggled to respond of late when Carolina gains control. So which version of that will show up in Game 6? Vegas has the home crowd on the side. They got home ice advantage in this one. So they can they feed off of that crowd energy at T-Mobile Arena for Game 5? Not Game 5, Game 6. For the Hurricanes, the captain factor, Jordan Staal, he's been one of the most defining stories of this Stanley Cup Final, not just because of the goals, not just because of the points, but because leadership. Leadership. His defensive responsibility role, his matchup role, the type of player he is. When the Hurricanes need a huge goal, he's right there. When they need somebody to win the crucial face-off, he's right there. So he's been having an unbelievable Stanley Cup Final. It's just great to see. For the Golden Knights, can their stars deliver in a must-win game for Vegas? Because in Game 5, we didn't see Mitch Marner, Jack Eichel, and Mark Stone get on the score sheet. And those are the top offensive players on that Golden Knights team. And those guys got to get going for Game 6. They drive that offense, and that offense is going to have to click in Game 6 if the Golden Knights want a chance to force a Game 7. But here are my keys to the game for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. For the Hurricanes, stick to the game. Since Brandon Bussi has stepped in, this team has looked completely different. In Games 1 through 3, when Freddie Anderson was in net, they were trying to hang in there, and Anderson himself was struggling. He couldn't find that consistency in net. He struggled. Vegas took advantage of him. But ever since the switch, Brandon Bussi, the bus train, chugga, chugga, choo, choo. Carolina has looked faster, more confident. They look more struggling. They were playing Carolina Hurricanes hockey throughout this second half of the series, like Games 4 and 5. Like they have been playing Carolina Hurricanes hockey. And they've been, again, like I said, more of a different team. So the bus train is rolling for Carolina. They don't need to get fancy with it. They just need to play their structure, win the puck battles, win the board battles, play their aggressive transition game that they've been playing throughout this entire postseason, and that's going to win them the series. Biggest edge in the series, special teams. Like I said, special teams has been dominant the series. It's played out in favor of Carolina in the series, and that's why they're up 3-2, and it's going to be a deciding factor for Game 6. For the Golden Knights, stay out the damn box. Stay out of the box. That is the goal for Vegas. Stay out of the box. Because Game 5, they took those unnecessary penalties, as I said before, earlier on in this episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast. The Golden Knights cannot stay out of the box. But in Game 6, they're going to have to stay out of the box. They want a chance to force a Game 7. Now, there's going to be some penalties in this game. Because it's hockey. Penalties aren't going to go away. It's hockey. They're not going to go away. But you can't take the unnecessary penalties. You can't let Carolina, because their power play has been clicking on all cylinders in this series. You can't let Carolina find some way to win Game 6. So those unnecessary penalties, it's going to have to put it an end for Game 6 and a potential Game 7. Because they took a lot of unnecessary penalties in Game 5. And they're going to have to be more disciplined and more structured for Game 6. But overall thoughts, though, I mean, this is going to be a huge Game 6 for both these teams. Hurricanes, a chance to win their second Stanley Cup. The Golden Knights, a chance to stay alive in this series and force a winner-take-all Game 7 Wednesday night in Raleigh. And this is going to answer all the questions. It's going to answer all you guys' questions. For Carolina, did they win it all in Game 6 Sunday night? Did they finish the job? In the words of the late and great Kobe Bryant, job's not finished. The job's not finished for Carolina. Can they finish the job in Game 6? Does the cup get lifted in Game 6 Sunday night? Does Carolina walk out of Las Vegas, Nevada as Stanley Cup champions? For the Golden Knights, do they have enough juice left? Do they have enough left in the tank? Do they show up and play a disciplined, more structured, professional game of hockey, if you will? Do they have one more punch left? Do they force a Game 7 back in Raleigh Wednesday night, June 17th? All those questions are going to get answered. But my answer, I feel the Hurricanes are getting it done. You guys know that because I said it all throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, all before the Stanley Cup Final. I said Hurricanes going to get it done. I said they'll get it done in 6. I'm fully confident they'll get it done in 6. They will get it done in 6 games. They will not go to a Game 7. I wouldn't be surprised if it does go to a Game 7, but I'm fully confident that Carolina closes this out in 6 games in Vegas. And they will walk out of Vegas as Stanley Cup champions. But those are my thoughts on the game. Let me know you guys' thoughts on it. Who do you think takes Game 6? Do you take Carolina or do you take Vegas? But I have not doubted Carolina at all this season. I picked them to win the Stanley Cup before this season even started, before the playoffs even started. I picked them to win the Stanley Cup. And I'm standing on my prediction. And I know, and I'm fully confident, they will get it done on Sunday night. And they will win the Stanley Cup for the second time in their franchise history. But let me know you guys' thoughts. How do you see Game 6 playing out? Is it Carolina winning? Is it Vegas winning? Do you have Carolina or Vegas winning a potential Game 7 that so happens to be a Game 7? Let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button. Make sure to follow the Hockey Talk TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. Enjoy Game 6 Sunday night when you get home from church. Game 6 comes on Sunday night. Should be a good one. We'll see if the Hurricanes can win it all in Vegas Sunday night. Or does there be a Game 7 Wednesday night in Raleigh? We'll just have to see. Hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you guys next time for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.